These are my top 5 tips for using Google Trends to accelerate your YouTube content strategy. My first tip is you need to look at your data with the correct perspective. With any data, if you don't fully understand what you're trying to use the data for, you're not going to be looking at it in the way that's going to be most beneficial for whatever you're using it for, whether it's your YouTube channel or your blog or anything. If you're not looking at it the correct way, it's not going to serve its purpose for you. For example, if you're just starting off on YouTube, your content strategy is going to be much different than someone that's a little more established or already knows what their niche is or knows the type of videos they're already looking for. So you need to make sure you approach your data with what your needs are and what your target and goals are going to be. And more importantly, you need to know how to read the data in order to know how it may or may not help you in your goals. Let's look at Google Trends and see how in this tool we're going to read the data that we're looking for to help us develop our keywords and our YouTube SEO strategy. When you go to trends.google.com, this is the landing screen that you end up on. This is a good overall view of different data points. And you can do a lot from here, but mostly it's just kind of giving you some little things you can look at. So here it has like Taylor Swift versus Kim Kardashian, World Cup information, and so on. So you could browse this, but this is really not any useful information for us. We're going to dive into the actual keywords here. We're going to throw up an example here of the type of situation you might find yourself in where your perspective might be thrown off a little by the data you're looking at. So let's start with something simple. Let's look at YouTube 2020 because we're developing maybe content for YouTube for the year 2020. Maybe it's YouTube analytics and so on, but we want to see what our general performance is for YouTube 2020. In this case, you can see a graph comes up. There's some other things you can do down here, but we're going to start with the main graph here. And the graph comes up, we're set on 12 months in the United States. You can see that there's somewhat an upward trend going on here. So we're like, okay, this looks great. But what is this actually telling us? As you hover over each of these points, so we have it set for the last 12 months, so it's going to give you different periods throughout the month. So you'll have about 4 or 5 points each month. And what it's telling you is how popular that trend is compared to the rest of your data. So in this case, a 78, that could be good, that could be bad, but what it's telling us is it's 78, about 70%, 8% as popular as this date over here. You're always going to have 100% on your sheet. It's just giving you trends, not the number of searches or anything like that. So that's why it's Google Trends. So here we're looking at 100 here. So you can see it's kind of an upward trend sort of thing here. So we could dive into maybe just the last 30 days to try to get a sense on where we're at in the month. It's pretty stable. It had some peaks, but usually 12 months kind of gives you a better sense of the trend. We're going to dive back to 5 years, and here we see once it comes up. Now we search 2020, so of course at some point as we got closer to 2020, it really started to pick up. And then you could see it really dominated. Now, if this was all the data you're looking at, you might be thinking like, wow, the data came in, it seems pretty solid. This is a good keyword to focus on for maybe an upcoming video. But when you have the proper perspective on what you're looking at, first you go, well, 2020 is just this year, and we're in November, entering December here. So maybe I should look at another one. So let's get a comparison going. So let's look at YouTube 2021 since we're going into 2021. Now that we have a little more perspective, this kind of puts things in a whole different world for us because suddenly YouTube 2021 looks like a horrible keyword to target right now because we're in late November here, practically December, and this keyword's garbage. So you're like, yeah, I'm definitely going to do a YouTube 2020. But this is why trends is so powerful, but you need to have the correct perspective to read it. So just off of this screen, if we look a little bit closer, we could kind of look at where it really spiked up. So it spiked up practically mid-December before YouTube 2020 started taking off. So that means now might be the perfect time to be developing YouTube 2021 type content because we're entering that season. We're entering December and we're getting really close to this big spike. We start getting our content in right now, we can hopefully start ranking for these terms ahead of other people. We'll have videos that are already trending and already have some authority and built up some views and and some data for YouTube, so hopefully they'll show our video when it comes to the big spike and people looking for that YouTube 2021 content. But let's add a little more perspective so we could really get a sense on where we're at. So we'll throw in another date, YouTube 2019. So once we add YouTube 2019, you get a little more perspective on what this keyword does, especially since it's date focused. So similar to YouTube 2020, in December of 2018, that's when YouTube 2019 keyword started to really take off. So we can see that clearly with these two. So we're just at the beginning of this curve. So 2019 had it, and then once it got into mid-December to late December and the beginning of January, it just took off and maintained that amount of views and search performance. 2020 did the same thing. So we could expect that YouTube 2021 is going to do it as well. Now in this case, we don't have a trend going through the whole 5 years because people aren't searching for a year, 3 years in advance. They're looking at it right when it becomes relevant, right as we go into the new year. Tip number 2 is know your audience. This tip is going to come up in pretty much every one of our tips moving forward, including perspective, because really one of the most important things you can do is know your audience. YouTube analytics for your channel is actually going to be one of your top places to get information about your audience. You could also reference your comments and kind of evaluate what your target audience is depending on what you're doing. But YouTube Analytics is by far going to give you the most information about the people that are actually watching your video. I'm going to leave some more resources in the description below to help you get some more information, and possibly a card at the top of the screen. I think it's over there, to help you out as well. But audience is so crucial, because if you don't know what your target audience is, or the audience that is actually watching your videos, it's going to really hamper your ability to dive into the keywords that you should be targeting for your channel. Tip number 3 is search by country. This isn't going to apply to a lot of you, but some of you guys, it's really going to make the difference between a successful YouTube channel or a successful piece of content or video, and then it just not performing well at all. So make sure you at least look at countries a little bit. Usually you're going to be looking at worldview, like you can see here, where we have a general topic like golf. We can see worldview up here in the left kind of have over 5 years has peaks and valleys. So there's really one time of the year that worldwide golf does better than others. Now we don't have any other perspective for other sports or other terms. We're just kind of looking at the trends for the topic of golf in general. So we know if we're going to make content for golf, we should probably be looking at around January, start producing that content going into the new year actually, which is interesting. And then throughout the year, especially as we go into the summer months, golf really takes off. And obviously US is in the summer during these months, so that's probably a big driving factor to this. And we could dive into that. Here we have the United States, and you could see that's the trend that it goes through. So starting in December as we go into the new year, it starts taking off in traffic. You can see over in Greece, golf does not really have peaks and valleys. So if you know your target audience is mostly Greece based, you don't really have to worry about the ups and downs of golf, because it's generally a topic being searched for. All in all, don't be afraid to dive into country data, because you might find some interesting nuggets that'll help you stand out from your competitors. You might find that topic that maybe has a down season that other YouTubers are avoiding, but you could capitalize on by tying it in with a similar topic and really capitalize on other parts of the world that are still interested in a topic, and bring in both topics together to really make some enticing content. Tip number 4 is check the trends for your vertical. This makes the content more relevant for your channel and for your niche. Google Trends is also able to give you better perspective on where your niche trends are going and how to best capitalize on them. This will be powerful information in driving views to your videos and ranking them in YouTube search. Let's take a look at a popular topic, how to cook, and see how looking at the trends within our vertical would help us analyze the trends for this topic. So you can see we have a lot of great data over the last 5 years on how to cook was performing in search. So you can see every year or so around the same time, so US Thanksgiving and then Christmas time worldwide, you have a spike in how to cook. So that's something you really want to be aware of for your cooking channel. And then very interestingly, you could see when March came around and we had a pandemic going on, the search term just went crazy for how to cook. Everyone was at home trying to cook. If you're looking at your term around that time and looking at the trends, you could have really capitalized on that. Or as long as you have an understanding of your niche and your audience, you would have known people staying at home, they're going to start cooking more often, and capitalized on it in that way as well. But let's take a look at our related search terms and see how we could have capitalized on this further. If you scroll down, you could, one, get some more country information, but you could also get these related topics and related queries. This is a great place to go when you're trying to find other topics or other videos to do related to your topic. So you can see on the left we have related topics and what's rising. You can see some of the related topics are specifically about Instant Pot, air fryer, cast iron, casting. So these are related to cooking because they're just different types of cooking, different tools used for cooking. We can also just skip right to the top ones and see cooking as a topic in general. So we had how to cook. So cooking is obviously the related topic, how to in general, and then chicken, steak, and roasting are also top topics that are related to how to cook. You could do the same with search queries as well. So again, we're looking at rising, so how to cook with zoodles, how to cook cauliflower rice, how to cook halloumi. I'm probably not saying that correct, but you got some other topics here on the rise. And then we can skip right to top, and we have chicken, pork, steak, turkey, rice, all how-to topics. And we can continue going through these, how to long cook chicken, how to cook beef, how to cook turkey. So all these topics, maybe you didn't think of some of these that you could dive into, and you know the order of their importance to people and what they're searching for. And so you have these topics and these related search queries at your fingertips that might give you some ideas of what you could do next. The fifth and final tip is to look at YouTube search versus Google search. In most cases, they're going to be pretty similar, but they could give you some insight into the trends that matter most. But really, with this tip, the biggest thing you could do is make sure you're comparing to the actual performance of your videos within YouTube Analytics for your videos to see what is actually performing in Google search. Some more general topics might be showing up better in Google search because people are searching for that and Google's displaying your videos to them. So you're getting a lot of results coming from Google search versus YouTube search. And that could be a powerful way to really get your videos to perform better than your competitors by understanding what types of keywords are doing well in Google search. Now again, when you dive into Google Trends, usually the trends are pretty similar between Google search and YouTube. And that's why you have to compare the actual analytics of the videos. But diving into the search terms using Google Trends and comparing YouTube and Google, you could get a better idea of what is actually trending and where it might be trending. So let's take a look at a couple examples here. Here we have a popular software that people use, Microsoft Office, and oftentimes people are looking for how they could best utilize it. So here we have how to use Microsoft Office, and you can see in YouTube search it was performing pretty sporadically and kind of leveled off and kind of has this single trend going on over the last 5 years. And we can switch this over to web search, and again, we're not comparing them directly against each other, but you can see that here it's been performing pretty consistently over the last 5 years. So, for example, if you decided to make YouTube videos on this content, even though in YouTube it has dropped off a number of years ago, you could see there's still people searching for it in Google search, so you might actually get some hits on it there. So it could be worth your time, and you could be targeting an area that there's not a lot of competition for on YouTube. This is where you'd want to go into YouTube and see how those videos are performing if you create them, or start doing some searches within the YouTube environment to see what videos are actually displaying. My guess is, based off of the data here, possibly there's not a whole lot of competition because people might not be getting as much traffic as they were previously. But that just means there might be an opportunity for you to capitalize on them. So don't ignore Google search and have an idea of what actually performs there. Other general topics might be how-to, one of the most popular searches there are, and people are searching for it in Google and YouTube, and they're getting displayed YouTube videos for those searches, so don't ignore them. Alright, well, I hope you enjoyed my top 5 tips for using Google Trends. I know it's going to really help you accelerate your YouTube growth and hit the goals that you're shooting for. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. If there's anything I missed, please let me know. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.